Okay, do me a favor, take a deep breath. In and out. Simple, right? Well, you're going to do that over 20,000 times today without even thinking about it. But have you ever really stopped to wonder what's going on? What is that breath for? It's fueling this incredible microscopic fire inside you, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into.
So we're talking about those 20,000 breaths a day. But what is a breath, really? I mean, it feels like the whole story is just, air in, air out. But that's just step one. The real magic, the thing that actually keeps you alive, isn't the breathing itself. It's something called respiration. And yeah, you heard that right. They are two totally different things.
All right, first things first, we've got to clear up some confusion. We all kind of use the words breathing and respiration interchangeably, right? But in biology, that's a big no-no. One is just the physical movement, the mechanics of it all. The other is the chemical reaction that literally defines life.
Here's the best way to think about it. Breathing, that's what we call external respiration, is like the mail truck. Its job is just to deliver a package of oxygen to your body's front door. Super important, right? But it's not the main event. Now, cellular respiration, or internal respiration, that's what happens inside the house. That's you opening the package and using what's inside to power everything, your lights, your computer, your brain. One is just the delivery service, the other is the actual power plant.
Okay, so before we go on this wild tour of all the crazy ways different creatures breathe, we need to lay down some ground rules. Because it turns out there are these universal, non-negotiable laws that every single respiratory system has to follow, whether you're an earthworm or a blue whale.
And these rules are pretty amazing when you think about it. No matter the creature, the surface where gas exchange happens has to have these features. First, it's got to be moist. Why? Because gases like oxygen have to dissolve in a liquid before they can cross a membrane. It also has to be incredibly thin-walled so that diffusion can happen fast. And it needs a huge surface area, we're talking massive, to get enough gas in. And of course it has to be permeable, and it needs a transport system, like our blood, which is why these areas are always packed with tiny capillaries. It's a universal blueprint for life.
So, keeping those rules in mind, let's go check out some of life's most amazing breathing systems. The designs are all over the map, but you're going to see those same core principles popping up again and again.
Let's start with the simplest of the simple, a single-celled organism like an amoeba. For this little guy, its entire body is its lung. Seriously, its surface area is so huge compared to its tiny volume that gases can just diffuse right in and out of its cell membrane from the water. No special parts needed at all.
Okay, let's take one step up the complexity ladder to the earthworm. It basically breathes through its skin, and that's exactly why they have to stay moist. If an earthworm's skin dries out, it literally suffocates. It's a super effective strategy, as long as you don't mind living in the dirt.
But what if you live your whole life underwater where oxygen is way scarcer? Well, then you need a specialized tool. Enter gills. Gills are just these incredible, intricate, feathery filters that are absolute masters at pulling tiny amounts of dissolved oxygen straight out of the water as it flows past. Now, insects went a completely different route. They came up with a system that's so wild it completely bypasses the need for lungs and for blood to carry oxygen. They have this network of tiny air tubes called a tracheal system that acts like a direct pipeline, piping oxygen from the outside straight to their cells. It's like every cell has its own personal scuba tank.
And here's how it works. It's ridiculously efficient. Air comes in through these little openings on the insect's body called spiracles. Then it travels down these main tubes, the trachea, which branch off into smaller and smaller tubes called tracheoles. These little tubes go so deep into the body that they deliver oxygen right to the doorstep of the tissues. There's no middleman, no blood transport required for oxygen. It's brilliant.
And that finally brings us to the system we're most familiar with, lungs. For animals like us, mammals, birds, reptiles, the solution was to take that delicate, moist respiratory surface and tuck it safely inside the body. This way, we're protected from the dry air outside while still being able to get all the oxygen we need.
All right, so let's zoom in on us. Let's follow the journey of the very breath you just took. We're going to trace it from the tip of your nose all the way down to the microscopic moment it finally jumps into your bloodstream. So the journey starts the second the air enters your nose. Your nasal passages are like a little pre-treatment plant. They warm the air up, humidify it, filter it so it doesn't shock your sensitive lungs. From there, it goes down your windpipe, or trachea, which then splits into this incredible branching tree of smaller and smaller tubes, the bronchi and bronchioles. And at the very end of the tiniest branches, you find the destination. Millions of these tiny, grape-like air sacs called alveoli. This is where the action happens.
So how does the air even get in there? You might think you're sucking it in, but that's not what's happening. It's all about pressure. When you inhale, your rib muscles contract, pulling your ribs up and out. At the same time, your diaphragm, that big dome-shaped muscle under your lungs, contracts and flattens out. All this action makes your chest cavity bigger. More volume means lower pressure inside your lungs than outside your body. And science does the rest. The higher pressure air outside just rushes in to fill the space. It's a vacuum effect.
Exhaling, on the other hand, is usually the easy part, at least when you're just resting. It's almost entirely passive. Your muscles just relax. The ribs move down and in. The diaphragm goes back to its dome shape. This shrinks the chest cavity, which squeezes the air and increases the pressure inside. Now the pressure inside is higher than outside, so the air just gets pushed out. It's a really smart, energy-saving design.
Okay, so we've got the mechanics down. We know how the air moves. But what are we actually exchanging? What's the real difference between the air we breathe in and the air we breathe out? When you look at the numbers, it's pretty eye-opening. Okay, check out this table. The air we breathe in is about 21% oxygen. The air we breathe out is still about 16% oxygen. So get this, we're only using about a quarter of the oxygen in any given breath. But here's the kicker, carbon dioxide. It goes from a tiny fraction of a percent, 0.03% in the air we breathe in, to a full 4% on the way out. That is a massive increase. That's your body literally dumping the waste product from all that energy making in your cells. And this chart really drives the point home. You can see the oxygen dip, sure, but just look at the carbon dioxide bar. It goes from practically nothing to this huge spike. That's more than a 100-fold increase. It's a perfect visual of just how much metabolic waste your body is constantly producing just to keep you going. But hey, it's not just an animal story. This whole gas exchange thing is a universal problem for complex life, and that includes plants. They need to breathe too, and they've evolved their own incredibly cool way of doing it.
So, instead of having a central set of lungs like we do, a plant has thousands of tiny little mouths all over its leaves. These are called stomata, and they're amazing. They can actually open and close. This lets the plant control its gas exchange very precisely, balancing its need to take in carbon dioxide with its need to not lose too much water.
And this is where we get to one of the most beautiful, perfect symmetries in all of nature. Plants also respire, just like us. They break down food to get energy. But that process is the exact mirror image of photosynthesis. Look here. Respiration uses oxygen and carbs to create CO2, water, and energy. Photosynthesis uses CO2, water, and energy to create oxygen and carbs. They are two sides of the same coin. It's the cycle that powers almost everything on this planet.
So, that brings us to a final thought. If this process, this cellular respiration, is happening right now in every single one of your trillions of cells, what does that really say about the sheer amount of energy it takes to just be alive? The next time you take a breath, just for a second, remember what's really going on. It's not just air, it's fuel. It's the fuel for the constant, quiet fire that powers every thought, every beat of your heart. It's the price of admission for being alive.